Hi guys, how y'all doing? Thank you for coming out. This is our last panel, but not least. This is a panel of bosses right here that I have the honor of introducing. I'm going to introduce my ladies first. I have Linnea Miron. She is the CEO of Real Wellness and co-founder along with Ricky Williams. I have Chloe Villano right over here. She runs Cloverleaf University and serves as a consultant for the industry. Planned an amazing event last night. If you guys didn't make it, you really missed out. Then I have Ricky Williams right here, former NFL player and co-founder of Real Wellness. And then I have Rohan Marley, last but not least, son of Bob Marley and founder of Marley Coffee. These guys are going to be talking to you about their story and how they founded their brands, so I hope that you enjoy.
All right, thank you all for being here today. This beautiful sunny day in Florida. It's supposed to be raining, but it hasn't, so that's awesome. So we want to welcome you today. We're going to talk about building your cannabis business and the story behind the brand. We know that everything has a story, and it's very important. When even a company goes public, they discuss the story. How are they going to tell it? And that's going to be how the investors decide if they're going to put money in, is through the story and what this company stands for, which is really the brand. And if you look at some of the way that people have marketed things over the years, for instance, like diamonds. Diamonds are a very, they're really not an expensive stone if you really know the price of diamonds. But because somebody did such an amazing job of making a campaign called Diamonds Are Forever, they convinced every woman in the world that if she was going to have true love, she would get a diamond. And that really drove the prices of diamonds up. So you look at something like that and how just marketing and branding and a story can really change a business or even create an industry. And so we're really excited to come here today and talk about our personal stories and how that has created some big brands. So I want to start with Linnea, since she is the CEO of Real Wellness and the woman, because women are go first. And we wanted to kind of ask you a little bit about your story and how Real Wellness came about with your vision and when you really realized this is what I'm going to do.
Thanks, Chloe. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Is this on? Okay. Well, to start with our story, I would say, Ricky and I get asked a lot how we met. So I'll start with that. And when I think about sort of our story and where we're at this stage of it, I sort of think of it in sort of these three parts. And the first part being, if it was a chapter and it had a title, I would call it "Find Out Who You Are and Do It on Purpose." And that's a great Dolly Parton quote that Ricky and I have used and reflected on and considered. And that's really the first part of where things started. We met a few years ago. We had a mutual friend who was insistent on us meeting and putting us in the same room. She had a sense that this would happen, and she was right. And when we met, within a couple minutes of meeting, Ricky asked me, "What's your sun sign?" And
I wasn't hitting on her, I promise.
I know it sounds like a '70s pickup. So and I said, "I don't know what a sun sign is, but I'm a Pisces." And he was like, the archetype of the mystic and the visionary. And I was like, dude, I'm a corporate lawyer. That's not me. But interestingly, at the time when we met, I was 14 years into a legal career. I had worked at two of the biggest law firms in the world. And notably, what I was doing at the time, going into the office at that stage, is that yes, I found a way through going part-time and so forth. I was still drafting all those JV agreements and those contracts, but really what I was doing that was bringing me fulfillment was I was going into dispensaries. I had a favorite one on Abbot Kinney in Venice, and I would go in and I would curate and pick out things to bring in for my neurotic lawyer friends who were suffering from sleep issues, anxiety, pain, all kinds of things. And in in my experience, they were overusing Xanax, Ambien, and alcohol were probably the three big ones. And I was bringing in plant medicine to them and helping them. And one day I was walking by a friend's office. It was like 9 a.m, and she's a very successful labor and employment partner. And she was like, "Hey, Linnea, come here." And I said, "What?" And she said, "My hair is wet, which means I took a shower this morning, but I don't remember. And I know we're in downtown LA right now, but I don't remember driving here from Santa Monica on the 10." And that completely changed me when I heard her say that. And I felt that there was something in me that woke up in her pointing that out to me, and in our friends and family coming to us ask us for help, that they helped me, and Ricky helped me find out who I really was at my core. And so Ricky comes into my life, and now we start making these things in our kitchen with not just cannabis, but with other herbs too. And we start providing that to the friends and family, because I learned a lot going into those dispensaries as a woman, and what I found was a glaring omission of brands and products for women. Most of the people that we were treating, my lawyer friends, our friends and family, my mother, all women. And all of these things sort of came together at that time, where it became very clear that I was no longer meant to be a corporate lawyer anymore. And Ricky and I were meant to join forces and to create something in this space in order to help people find out who they are, to feel better, and to help people wean off of pharmaceuticals and opioids. And that's essentially what we've done with Real Wellness.
It's truly amazing. I mean, we have a huge opioid epidemic, and when you really realize it and you realize what our healthcare system is, it can be really shocking. And the fact that is that this industry has more solutions than any other industry, economically and medically. So I think that that's such a beautiful story. And so you guys did start out in a kitchen, which is so crazy, because so many people did. It's like you bake your first batch of brownies or something, and then you go into the business.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not sure if I'm next question, but I'll just piggyback.
You're next.
I'll piggyback off what she said, and the idea of starting in the kitchen. So my story with cannabis, a lot of people down in South Florida know it started when I failed my first drug test in 2002. And at the time, I didn't hear anybody talking about medicinal marijuana. And when I learned that it had medicinal qualities, part of me was surprised, and part of me was like, of course it does. And so when I retired from the NFL in 2004, I traveled around the country, traveled around the world actually, kind of looking for myself, trying to find out who am I and what's important to me now that football is out of my life. And what I realized in my travels is that at my core, I'm a healer. And that's what I was using cannabis for the whole time. And so when I came back to the States, realizing I need to get a job, I started to study Ayurveda in Northern California, which is an alternative healing modality from India. And within a week, I was introduced into the herb lab, and walked into this room, and we had over 150 different herbs. And I was in Northern California and realized I could go to the doctor and get a recommendation. And so I went to the herb lab and brought a bunch of herbs home. I went down the street to one of my neighbors and brought a lot of bud home. And at the time, my son was 3, and he had really bad eczema. And I started doing reading, and I said, I'm going to see if this works to help him. And so I got a bunch of herbs and some ghee, clarified butter, and about an ounce. And in India and Ayurveda, they make a lot of oils. And so I had learned the technique at school, and I went in the kitchen and I started playing. And I was able to make something that helped my son. And just that feeling of taking my knowledge from my travels and my experiences to be able to create something that helped my son not suffer, It's tough watching your kid scratching his skin off, in the wee hours of the night. So to be able to again, use my knowledge to create something was special. Fast forward several years, 2015, I got a call from a former teammate of mine and said, "Hey, why don't you come to one of these cannabis conferences and tell your story?" At the time I was living in Texas, and I said, I'm getting a lot of pushback here, so I'm going to have to decline. And I hung up the phone, and I thought about it, and I was like, everybody knows I smoke anyway. And so I called them back up, I decided to speak at the conference, and it changed my life. To sit in front of 200 people and tell my story for the first time, it was so cathartic. And even more powerful was after I spoke, I walked around the floor, and so many people came up to me and told me how much of an inspiration I was because, I stood up to the man and I didn't lie about what I was doing. And, after I retired, coming from the football world, that was the first time that I had experienced people really appreciating my plight. And it felt great. And I thought of something my mom always says. She says, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And so I started to do more conferences. And then after I would speak, I'd walk the floor and people would talk to me about, hey, why don't you come out with the brand? Or why don't you sign with my brand? And I thought about it. And I said, okay, if I'm going to do something in this space, what do I want to do? And that flash of making the ointment for my son came, and I said, I want to make medicine. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, greetings everyone. Well, for me, how I got in cannabis, I was born in it. No, honestly, I mean, as a little kid, my father and his friends, they would sew the herb and cut the herb on the board, and back then the herb with the seeds, So I used to always just eat the herb seed, eat the herb seed. And growing up in Jamaica, it was more of like, it wasn't accepted by the elders, the older people, because there are a lot of Christian in Jamaica, and they don't really respect or acknowledge Rastafari principles. They think, Rasta is this and Rasta is that. And just leaving Jamaica, coming to Miami, going to University of Miami, it wasn't accepted there. But every so often, I'd always take a pull of my grandma's spliff, but obviously going back to school, getting drug tests, I used to have to take a lot of golden seals so they wouldn't show in my test, So for many years, I was hiding that just hiding it, that I'm a herbalist, meaning you can't detect it in my blood. So I never really spoke about it. I was never really upfront with herb. You would never see me with a spliff anywhere. I smoke, but I smoke privately. Until, I've known Ricky many years and watched Ricky's story and learned about, how much persecution he was getting just because of an herb. And I would listen to him talk about that he smokes herb because he doesn't want to take all these pills. He doesn't want to be stuck on drugs and stuff. So that went on, and then herb became something where everything now has become medicinal. So we, the Marley family, as you know, we were always the herb advocates. We were always for the herb, and the opportunity came with a group. They came into the family and spoke about, herb is going to be legal in America soon. Herb is going to be doing this. It would be nice for the family to really be the brand, to get into the herb space. And the lawyers, they were having a problem because, no, you can't be attached to that because the government's going to be this, and the government. But we're like, but we are attached to it, So we just became very, very much involved in the movement as advocates to begin with, and make it be known that we really represent the herb and we want to be a part of this movement. So we got involved with herb because we are herb and we want to be a part of the movement to change the way people see herb now, because look at the room. If you look at the room, everyone's in a suit and tie, Well, not everybody, but as you know, back then, this wasn't the faces that you hear when you talk about herb. If you don't have locks, so it's nice to see that herb is growing and we're part of that, and we just didn't want to get left out. Was something that we have been advocates for so long. So the business, it's all part of the business now. So we want to be a part of that.
Perfect. It's so crazy to think that you grew up around cannabis like that. That was just your life. It's
I mean, every day.
Your dad smoked every day?
Well, it's not my dad, it's my grandma. Everybody.
So great. Well,
wait 1 second.
Yes.
In the morning, on the way to school, when I would get picked up to go to school, my dad's lawyer, Diane, she used to have a big spliff in her mouth. And right before she go to school, she does like this, ash to sniff out. But I'm going, of course, I walk in the car, smell like herb. That was a prep school.
So funny. So, what was the moment though through this? I mean, your love for medicine, you're in the kitchen, you create something and you realize that you have this gift where you're a corporate attorney, where you have the know-how to set up real business, and you see these issues. And they always say, like, if you really want a successful business, find a problem and solve it, right? But the passion behind that, like, you really can't teach that. How did that passion develop into your personal brands? And we'll start with Real Wellness.
It's an interesting question because I didn't even think about it. It just kind of happens. Once you're kind of, as I said, once you kind of wake up to who you really are, it just, you just can't live any other way, really. It just, like I was thinking about it, I was like, well, how did I make it? I didn't make it happen. It happened to me through that transformation that I started to describe that happened with that encounter with Ricky, but to actually put it into practice, I would say, after that meeting that we had, I would say it was probably a few weeks later, where he said to me, do you ever think about creating something together? And I had never had a man in my life say that to me. And that also sort of catalyzed an opening for me where I thought, wow, like he just kind of put it on the table, almost like setting an intention before you go into a yoga session. Right? What's the intention of this relationship? Why are we doing this? And I had never done that with my first husband or with anyone else really. And it was a moment where I was like, okay, this is conscious relationship right here. And we made an agreement to, as long as we're together, we're going to be creating. And what we're creating and working towards is to help people, including ourselves. It's happening to us as we're doing it with everyone else, to find ourselves and to do it on purpose. And what I've noticed is that when people find themselves, that's when you become a leader. That's when you really become a leader. And you become a leader in your own life. And then once you're able to do that, then you can go out and lead collectively. And then you can do what Rohan is saying, you start a movement. And that's really, there's this great 3-minute TED Talk called How to Build a Movement or How to Create a Movement, a guy named Derek, and it's very funny. But it's essentially, the tagline of it, it's great if you watch it, but the tagline is, yes, there's a leader who comes out first, but the leader that's really underestimated is the first follower. And the first follower, I think his quote is, it's the first follower that transforms a lone nut into a leader, right? So you get a lone nut, but you need a really good, and every element of it fell into place with us because I became, Ricky's kind of first follower, truly, who could go toe to toe with him, and then he in turn treated me like an equal, and that's how you start a movement. And then it's this person who then goes out and finds all the other people, which is what I was naturally doing before, and then that's how you build off of that, because what we're doing is, it's not just a brand, it's a movement, to what Rohan was saying.
Revolution.
Yeah, it's a revolution. So for me, it was a gradual thing, and I think it all started here in Miami. And I had a lot of questions back in 2004 when I walked away from the game. And like there wasn't the amount of information or people like this or conferences like this talking about cannabis. And so I left, and part of me knew I was doing the right thing, but part of me was like, I just gave up everything that was valuable to me. And so for me, part of it was a journey to figure out what's really going on. And the reason, a couple of reasons, but the main reason we named our company Real Wellness is because I'm a big fan of THC, and I'm a big fan of altered states. And most indigenous cultures believe that true healing only occurs in an altered state. In my own personal experience of being one of the best football players in the world, and I was extremely unhappy. And I found cannabis, and I started to find that inside, outside I was a football player, but inside there was a lot more. And that started my journey. And so my passion comes from, there's so many people I see in life who feel stuck, stuck in a bad marriage, stuck in a bad job, stuck in a bad life. And for me, I was there. And cannabis really opened my mind and helped me get on my journey. And to me, that's the real healer.
It's awesome.
And for myself, we talk about passion. Everything is about passion for myself. You know, in 1999, after I left UM in 95, I really thought I was going to play in the NFL. But obviously, they told me I was too small. I didn't think so. So I started dating a woman, and she's a popular singer. And one day she says to me, like, "What do you do?" I said, "What do you mean, what do I do?" I'm here taking care of these children. What do you mean you're out there working? I'm home taking care of the children. But it rang a bell, you know, and I had to find something to do. So I had about $200,000, and there was a land in Jamaica going for $200,000. So I said, well, I got the money. so I went down there. I loved the property, had a beautiful river. And when I bought this land, I didn't know what I was going to do with the land. So the community, they were standing on the property, and I knew that they needed my help. And the minute they heard I was Bob Marley's son, they saw hope, you know, even though I had no money. But they saw hope, and I couldn't let those people down. So my question to them is like, what is the community known for? And they told me the community is known for coffee. So I said to them, what's on my land? They told me coffee. And I asked, do you know anything about coffee? They said, yes, Mr. Marley, we've been farming coffee all our lives. So I said, all right, we're in the coffee business. So that was my, that was kind of my way to like make them happy, like to give them a way, you know, and it's farming and it's food. And I said that, okay, how am I going to do this? I said, well, if it's my business has to be like me, not me the business, not I follow the business. So what am I? Question, what am I? Who am I? A Rastafari. That's the only thing I can remember that I am, is Rastafari. And Rastafari is about the principles of the way of life and the way we eat. So I told them, I said, listen, you can't use any chemicals on my land because I don't want to be responsible for your ailments, because it wouldn't be purposeful for you to do something that's going to destroy your life, but you're trying to enhance my life. So I decided that anything I was going to do was going to be organic. And then I realized that I have a farm. If we take care of the land will then take care of the community. But I need a community to take care of the land. So I started to understand what sustainability was all about. And that's kind of my passion, was for the community to get involved as an entrepreneur and doing things that way. And I learned that if I can work with people that believe in themselves and also believe in the vision, I can do anything. And what makes them believe in that is the passion. So I just take that across the board, whatever I'm doing, whether it's coffee, whether it's herbs, it could be anything. I love it, I'm going to do it. And if it's from the earth, even better for me, because I can watch it grow, and I can, like a child, and I can nurture that plant and have that plant become the way it should be, that's going to be beneficial to one's life. Health, wellness, as we talk about. So I'm into this business, as you say, the business now, because I want to be responsible for health and wellness, because herb is the healing of the nation. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'm passionate about it because, you know, it's more than just the consummation. It's also about the persecution of the people that's been arrested for just a little spliff, just because you want to, like Ricky said, just because he want to go inside himself and realize who he is. You go to jail for that, you know? So those things are some of the things why we are the way we are, and very passionate about it, and we're up front now. See, even the NFL, they have to really close one eye to it, because in Denver, Colorado, where it's legal, and you have NFL teams over there, so those guys, you know, they got to kind of play with the system and work with the system. So I'm all for it, and it's all about passion. And anything I do, it has to be for passion first. If I don't love it, I can't do it.
Perfect. You know, it's so funny because I think that it starts with putting yourself into your brand. It's who are you, right? Yeah. And then once you figure that out, then this thing develops, your business, because it's just a business. It's just paperwork until you create everything involved, the products, you know, what you're going to sell, the land, the locations, and then you get the passion, and that passion drives really you and your business, and then you create something that can become, you know, monstrous. It's just going to be huge. And so it's really exciting to watch now that we're at the very beginning of cannabis. And we know cannabis brought all of us here. We know that there's all these issues. We have social justice issues. We have, you know, a horrible education system, a horrible medical system. I mean, there's just, everything's kind of backwards. We have an opioid epidemic. And we have so many solutions, like I said, in this industry, and people of great passion and influence coming into this industry and putting everything on the line, which when somebody puts everything on the line, you know, that's brave. And bravery, I mean, you have to be brave. And I think everybody faces that even in their own personal lives. For me, you know, my parents were not really cool with the marijuana business. They always said, you're a straight A student, you did everything right, you can be in any industry, why would you choose something so hard? And this business is really hard. It's still building a business, it's still going to work every single day. And so I want to get into like the next part of what are the hardest decisions that you had to make to really put all of this forth into the business. And we know, Ricky, I mean, you walked away from, I mean, as you broke everybody's heart probably when you quit playing football, right? The fans, I can only imagine, what was that like? I mean, what was the hardest thing?
You know, I mean, maybe it's looking back from now. That decision actually wasn't that difficult. You know, it was something that was building. And to me, if you pay attention to life, there are so many signs, and there were just so many signs for me in my life that I needed a change. And I'd say it was a difficult decision to, you know, fast forward after my retirement, because I had to play nice for a few years when I came back to the NFL, was to come out and, you know, what I mentioned before about going to that conference and sharing my story for the first time. That was difficult. Relative to real wellness in our business, I think the most difficult decision was, you know, conventional wisdom would have told us to launch a brand that was really targeted towards athletes, because from the outside, that's what people assumed. But you know, my secret life is, you know, I've been studying herbalism and studying healing, different healing modalities. You know, I'm studying Chinese medicine right now, and so my true passion, you know, not what's on the outside, but my true passion is taking that information and helping and using it to help people feel better. And so when we, you know, talked about how are we going to brand this and how are we going to market this, you know, all the advisors were telling us, you know, athletes, and I said, that's not me. If a game is on, I love it and I still watch it and I still follow my Dolphins, but I'm not a football player anymore. You know, I'm not going to make any money for ever running a yard or a touchdown ever again. You know, and to be honest, you know, I probably would last only a couple plays anyway. But you know, finding formulas and formulating herbal formulas, I can do that for the rest of my life.
I mean, I can't lie. I was always hoping we would see the, you know, athlete super pill, the Run Ricky Run, cannabis strain or something.
That's coming. That's coming. Yeah.
But I think that, I mean, to really go in for just wellness, because we have to heal as a whole. And really, we have to heal from a lot of things. A bad medical system especially. I mean, people are getting cancer. We're killing cancer with radiation. I mean, this is, now we're finding that we have huge research that this cannabis that shrinks tumors at such a massive rate. We have doctors telling us they have 70% chance of successful, even more, bone marrow transplants if they use cannabis. I mean, all of this stuff. So where are you taking real wellness now? Because I know it's all wellness.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting as a football player, coming from that background, wellness, healing was equivalent to performance enhancement. And I don't mean like, you know, PEDs. I just mean doing things, training, you know, substances you take, legal substances that help you perform better. And you know, we have a formula now called Optimize, and it's a formula I got from one of my instructors at school who's a martial artist, and he said, you know, martial arts have been using this formula to help them, you know, improve flexibility and perform better in their martial arts. And so I said, that sounds wonderful. You know, when we call it Optimize, and you know, threw some herbs in there with some CBD, and it's amazing what it's doing for people. And so, you know, I consider myself a visionary. And the deeper I get into studying herbs, the deeper I get into studying cannabis, the deeper I get into studying the human body, I just come up with new ideas and ways to really help people. And so, sky's the limit, you know. But ultimately, you know, my dream for Will Wellness is to create, you know, practical products that people can use to increase the quality of their mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. And that doesn't exist right now.
Right.
Yeah, and what Ricky's saying on an individual level of helping people, you know, we also have a bigger picture vision of what we're doing collectively. You know, we're looking to mainstream herbalism. And what we see now is an opening, because, you know, Ricky and I are also very serious students of the evolution of generations and the evolution of what humans on the planet want at any given time. And we're very aware of where we are and where things are headed. And everything that we think about is as he said, visionary, is to be in place so that what becomes mainstream in 5 to 10 years, we're already there, right? And he's been doing that his whole life. I mean, that's something that people have recognized in him for decades publicly. But in terms of mainstreaming herbalism, what I love, and when he was just mentioning the optimized tonic, you know, it's a 7-in-1. It's not a 1-in-1. It's not CBD oil, right? When we put the products out with people, we create this visual of the herbs. We have these clear stacks, and they're leveled, 7 levels. And we've got the turmeric up top, and we label it as the turmeric, you know, and then the hook vine boosts immunity, right? We go all the way down through the cinnamon and through everything else that's in it. But we put right smack dab in the middle some little cannabis nugs. So it's there in the stack.
From the homegrown.
From the homegrown in Idlewild, California. But it's from Ricky's homegrown, but the point of it, we are very intentionally trying to take cannabis way over here and bring it in and say, listen, it's a powerful herb, and there are a whole lot of other ones too. So in the process, our products are literally destigmatizing cannabis as we get them into households.
And then you create products that people trust. And that's what I love is, you know, you're talking about the packaging, how you put that together. Then you say, you know, that you, before how Ricky was looking forward 5 years and you were looking forward 5 years. I mean, I don't think that some of the best retail stores in the world would have really ever seen Amazon coming, but I'm surprised that some of these huge stores like Sears and Macy's never thought people aren't going to want to come all the way over here and shop one day. And really it is about innovation. It's about always trying to improve not only yourself, but your products, because then that improvement with yourself and that spiritual energy really goes into that medicine. It makes all the difference. It creates a trusted product, not just a product where we slap on a label like these other CBD companies, and now we're in the CBD business, but really caring about that. And that's what really creates the sales that you want to see.
Yeah, and that's what's happening right now is our country is very sick. We're a very sick population. I believe it all stems back to not knowing who we really are, and that once you get clear on yourself, a lot of your illnesses just magically do fade. I have seen that in myself and other people. But you know, that's exactly what we're looking to do here is to help people get to that next level. And what I learned from watching my friends who are using certain things, calling it medicine, but it's not, it's chemicals. It's not medicine, it just masks certain symptoms. It's not going to the underlying core, which to me is existential, and tapping us into what Rohan was saying, tapping you into yourself and opening you up to yourself so that you can fall in love with yourself and become your own leader. That's wellness, that's health. And then everything else flows from there. But what I've learned is so many people are on these pharmaceuticals, and you can't just tell people just stop taking that. You have to provide them with a effective, legitimate alternative, and that's exactly what the cannabis industry is doing. And this is what we're doing. Only we're next level of it in the further herbal space in terms of the entourage effect of what cannabis does when it's mixed with other herbs and so forth. That's the next level of where everything is headed. And Americans are receptive to the wisdom of India and Asia and cultures that have known all of this for a very, very long time and have embraced it and are much healthier than we are right now as a country.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so funny because even you said, you know, people can't put pesticides, Rohan, you say on your garden. So you put a piece of yourself and your values and your standards into your coffee, which has become a giant, truly.
And back to the question was like, what was the most difficult thing for myself? Well, the most difficult thing is being a Marley and not being a singer. So when I started Marley Coffee, or just they're like, wait, do you have permission to use this name? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm Rohan Marley. Yes, I do. That's my face and signature on the bag. I do have permission. So it was really to get across to the people that we're not just singers, you know, we have other ideas as visionaries, and we want to grow. We don't want to just be limited just to you listening to the music, but we wanted to be able to translate that music into actuality, into a physical thing where it's still the same thing. It's a vehicle. So cannabis is a vehicle. Coffee is a vehicle, but the vehicle, what is the vehicle? It's what we put into it, is what we get out of it. So the vehicle should be a reflection of who we are, the legacy, and what we represent to a people, because that began with a voice, with my father's voice about, you know, the movement of togetherness, one love. But how then we get into a movement, a business, and not being that? So the hardest thing was translating the music into a something tangible, as well as letting everyone know, listen, I don't sing. Just like I played football. Bob Marley says not to play football. I said, well, I love the game. So same as business. I love to create. I love to do things. I love to grow, because if I can create, I can help more people. And I grew up in Jamaica seeing my father help many, many ones. But how do I get to do that without being a singer? I cannot work as a singer. So my thing was, build on what I have. I have a farm. I grow coffee. Now I'm growing cannabis. Utilize the land to suffice the people. And that was kind of my hurdle, was to say, yo, we're not just singers. We do other things.
Right. And you were a really amazing football player, too.
Thank you.
I've had a lot of people say, oh, University of Miami, right? Which
Tell you,
is
to
a great
start
team.
at linebacker for Miami, especially at that time, that says it all right there.
Thank you, sir. I mean, I never had a chance to play against Ricky, but I admired Ricky, because Ricky, I'm not sure if you guys know Earl Campbell, but Ricky's like the new age Earl Campbell with speed, power, and tenacity. So I used to watch Ricky. I was like, man, look at the size of his legs. I don't want to tackle Ricky. Well, that you know, that was just a sidebar thing.
I noticed that about your legs too when I first met you. I swear to God, I was like, oh my God. Same.
I mean, I have to say that. I have to say it because I idolize him. You know, I mean, so it's just a beautiful thing to be able to sit on a panel with Ricky and his wife, and you know, Chloe, and talk about cannabis today, and it's wonderful, you know, and it's building a unity amongst each other again, because herb brings us together. As you know, you talk about the indigenous people. It was the herbs that, when they sat in the circles, the herbs that talk about the elevation of one's mind, because we can sit here still and smoke a spliff, but we can see beyond oneself, and then we're going inner to the outer. So we love that, and that's what it's bringing together. As my father always said, you know, if all the soldiers would smoke a spliff before they go to war, they would just make love. They wouldn't war.
Right.
This is true.
Cannabis does bring people together, and it's such an amazing gift that we all have. And, you know, I think there's something that's very special and spiritual about the cannabis plant as well. And when you really stand up to it, like, you know, when you're true to yourself, because nothing's more important in life. You know, for me, my little brother was diagnosed at 14 years old with stage 4 cancer. And, you know, that's how I got into the industry. And when we lost my brother, I was just I was so heartbroken that all I did was work. That's kind of how I dealt with it. I never in a million years thought that type of pain would create and inspire me to start a university, which is an extremely hard thing to do. Sometimes I look back and go, wow. You know, it's all those late nights, all the hard work, but you do things when you're true to yourself. You find who you are, and you do a lot out of love, too. And it's so, now we've been approved for research studies, and we're going through, I mean, we've privately funded now a research study with the Children's Hospital to be able to study epilepsy and the recovery with cannabinoids in children. And we also have one for traumatic brain injury. We were just approved through the IRB board in February to start doing research. And they're human studies, and we're going farther into to see what else we could do. But those are really hard to get approval for. And so, I mean, it's like you never know where it's going to take you, no matter what you think. But I definitely know where I'm going, and I know that I'm going to fund thousands of research studies, and we are on the verge of really finding out what cannabis can do. We find new molecules, we find all these different things, and it's just the beginning. And so it's very exciting to be here today, especially with, such industry pioneers and people who are real people. You say real wellness, I think that's such a perfect name for your guys' brand, because you guys are very real. And the fact that even you, Ricky, could say, I'm gonna walk away from something because this isn't who I am. It might be what I do, but it's not who I am. I'm good at other things too. I have other gifts, and I want to do what fuels my passion, and I want to help people, not just be somebody's entertainment. And I think that bravery is found a lot in this industry too. I see a lot of people who just took these big steps and made history.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everyone in the industry's had to take a big step. We've all had people, that doubted us or told us we shouldn't do it, and it's in every myth, every fairy tale that the hero has to go through something difficult to find the hidden gem. And who in my life, who knew that that cannabis would be the medium? I had no idea. Yeah.
And even you, son of Bob Marley. So you weren't the singer, but you know what? Marley Coffee is one of the biggest coffee brands.
Well, thank you. And my family, they Steve Jobs me. They took over. I'm not running the show anymore. So now I had to do something else, which is cannabis. I had to start something new. Meaning not run the show, as I don't do the day-to-day at Marley Coffee anymore. So I decided that now I want to build my own brand, which is, I'm going to call it Line Order. And it's my cannabis line, So I'm doing something where I have autonomy. I make all the decisions. I don't need a group of people to tell me anything. I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, and how I want to do it, just like when I started the coffee company. So hopefully I'll maintain possession of this one forever. But I'm happy. And like you say, being Bob's son, obviously everyone grew up, thought I smoke herb. Anything I do, they say, oh, Marley, coffee's so good. It must have a little herb in it, So everything is herb for us. So it's nice that now we can turn it into a business and, do things we love and continue to do things that we think people need.
Yes. And so the last question I'll do before we take some questions from the audience is, now this passion has brought all of us here. And we've put our life into this. We've put our money where our mouth is, everything. But where are you going with your brands? Like, what do you see Lion Order and Real Wellness really becoming? And what is that? And how are you going to grow that as into an almost what I would say international brand?
Yeah. Well, first, my vision is, when people go to, say, even CVS, or they go to their doctor, that there's a real alternative that's taken seriously, and that people start to bring soul back into their life and realize that just taking chemicals isn't gonna fix everything. But the main thing for us is to have something, to put something on the shelves that people can trust, that people can use on a daily basis to improve the quality of their life. And it's cliche, but we're doing what we can to bring, I'm not even going to say normalization, because I think there's more that cannabis can do than just be normal. And so the way we look at it is, we're doing our small little bit to change the world.
And we are changing the world every single day. And everybody in this room may be a big part of that too. One day, I know I see some amazing people in here that I know, and it really is.
The how is what we've realized is partnership. I think there's so much work that needs to be done, and we can't do it on our own. And so finding like-minded partners that, and this is our big thing, and the team that we built at Real Wellness, realizing that we bring this, you talked about this last night about diversity. We bring a diverse group of people, and I'm not just talking about their genitalia and their skin color, just diverse backgrounds. And we find out, what does each person on this team do well, and give them an opportunity to put their best foot forward, and together we come together, and that's where magic is made.
And for myself, I want to create something that is traceable, transparent. You can go to the farm. I want to be very transparent in what I'm doing, and authenticity. but I want to represent the highest level. I don't want to just get into a space where I'm just, okay, yeah, I'm happy to do it because you have it. No, I want to do it because it's premium. I want to represent the premium side of things. Really, like what I give you should really heal you. The medicinal qualities. You have to know what you're smoking. You have to know the values that you're getting from the plant. So that's what I want to represent. I really taking that flower to where I see it, where it's really truly represented as medicine, whether it's recreational or medicinal, but it's all medicine.
You know what I really love too is, I love all of these stories, but it's so great too, you know, that you chose to make your wife the CEO. Well, I just think that's so impressive.
Well, she's the boss anyway. I mean, what was I kidding? And honestly, like I'm good at running a football, and I can come up with formulas, and I'm a visionary. But day-to-day business, I mean, she just has more experience, and she's just naturally good at it. And you know, I've always had this vision of, you know, being in a relationship where we're creating something together. And part of it is being on a football team. My favorite thing about playing on a football team was not about what I did, but it was seeing the people around me step up to the challenge and become more than they thought they could. And I know it was a challenge for Linnea to leave, you know, a cushy job, making a lot of money at a law firm to do the startup life, because, you know, shit's real. And so, and just to see her like surprise herself and what she's been able to do. I mean, it's, you know, someone who's never had to raise money before. She tore it up. And so, you know, and we support each other, and it's just been an amazing, and I'm sure it'll continue to be an amazing journey.
I don't think I could do this if it wasn't with him, to be honest. That was really the exciting part, was, you know, going from that first intention of, do you ever think about creating something, and then going to all these cannabis conferences where I see he's the darling, and everyone's like, when are you going to come out with something? And, you know, him realizing he can make medicine really well, better than what we were seeing in the dispensaries at the time. But what was so exciting was that he saw how hard I was working at the law firm, billing 2,000 hours a year. And that, you know, to the question of what's hard, even though this is exciting and what we're doing, it takes so much work. You can't be an entrepreneur without having a certain level of stamina. And that's what a lot of people are discovering as they jump in and everybody becomes a CEO and all of that, is it takes a tremendous amount of work. I could not do this if I hadn't have had 15 years of practice of billing 2,000 hours a year at law firms, just to get in the habit of, you just work every day, you just work. And he saw that when we met. I was going into the office and I was, you know, dressed like this and, you know, all of that, and going in, and he would call me and I'd still be at work late nights and like all of that. So he knew that I was a hard worker, but it was not in service to who I really was. It wasn't in service to that visionary and that purveyor of altered states of consciousness that is a Pisces, right? So he was very good at seeing where things were headed, looking at my skill set, looking at what wasn't getting fed at my life, waking up that vitality. And then what I love is that we created a platform where I get to highlight him as the gifted herbalist that he is, and he gets to highlight me as the leader and the CEO and the visionary. And it's so much fun that we do that, and that it's serving both purposes at the same time. That's what makes it so powerful. And it is, it's like birthing a baby. That's the other thing I didn't realize, is that when you create a company, you're literally birthing something new that didn't exist. It's like a human being. And to Ricky's point about the people, you got to find the right nannies, because that baby gets bigger and you two can't handle it anymore. And you have to find all the nannies that are going to come around and know their set of strengths and put the right people in the right places for the baby to get bigger and bigger. And we want this baby to be global. So we find the people that we need to help us make that happen. But it's a lot of round the clock work of the parents and the nannies feeding this thing. But it's a lot of fun the way that we structured it.
And this industry is like a baby that's always crying, going to the bathroom all the time, like, this is a bad baby, you know? Do you want to say anything on that?
No.
Okay. Well, I think, do we have any last comments, or should we open it up to audience questions? Yeah, I think we're ready. Does anybody have any questions for us?
Yeah. Just since we're telling stories, it's an interesting story. When I first came out, I wasn't trying to come out. I was really good friends with Dan Lepetard. Right, we used to write for the Miami Herald. Right, has a radio show for ESPN, and we were good friends. And I called the NFL and told them I'm going to retire. I knew I failed a drug test, but it's confidential, so I said I'm retiring. And a couple of weeks went by. Dan wrote a couple articles about how noble it was for someone to walk away from professional football at the height of their fame. And I was talking to Dan one night, and I said, I can't wait. In a couple years, we'll write a book, and I can talk about failing the drug test and tell my story. And I think I put him in a difficult position because he was a journalist, but he was also my best friend. And so he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, what are you talking about? So I woke up the next morning, and it was public. So, and then I had to deal with it. And that's when I had to make the decision. Mike Wallace came out to where I was studying Ayurveda in Northern California to do an interview, and he asked me point blank if I was still smoking, and on 60 Minutes, right? And so I like in that moment I had to decide: am I going to tell the truth, or am I going to lie? And I decided to tell the truth, and I think that was a magical moment in my life where I decided to be myself.
That's so great. So freeing, and it's so funny. I mean, even the pharmaceutical guy is coming out now, out of the closet, and even saying, that you find solutions. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. We're really honored to have you here. Do we have any other questions?
Hello, testing. It's not so much a question, but I spoke with Ricky earlier, and I talked to some people here in the room. We've started something called the Marijuana Hall of Fame. I think it's more than just time to start this journey, recognizing people who've paved the way, who championed what cannabis is now, the legalization, et cetera, et cetera. 2020 will be inaugurating our first class, and I flew in from Chicago this morning. I flew in to actually give an invitation to Ricky Williams to be inducted with Willie Nelson and a bunch of other people for 2020, because what he represents and what this gentleman said behind me, and you did excellent, and I just want to make sure that something again. I got you right here. And also, Mr. Marley, on behalf of your father,
Thank you.
I mean, just so obvious, Bob Marley will be inducted with Willie Nelson as far as two of the musicians for 2020. Again, I just want to say that what it represents is something that's so serious and so dear to me, but dear to a lot of people in the community that paved the way, and a lot of people suffered along the way, for a plant that really has been a very healing plant. But somehow, our government, the United States has demonized it. And we know, true to our hearts, corporations, CEOs, people in general, we know what this plant really does for people. It's helped my nephew who suffers from seizures. And so I just want to say the invitation has been extended. I appreciate you, Ricky Williams, and I appreciate what your father represented, Mr. Marley, Bob Marley. And again, I just want to say, if you accept, we'll be inducted next year. Welcome to the Marijuana Hall of Fame. First year.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to talk to Dad about it now. Do what you love and don't stop doing it.
Mine's cheesy, but I would say it is really work to not care so much what other people think about you. And I think that goes hand in hand. Is we have the urge to do what we want to do, but then the thinking about other people's reactions.
Yeah, I think mine would be just don't worry so much. Like everything's gonna be fine. Just fucking relax. And actually, that will help you if you relax.
It's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. Mine would be similar. Just don't sweat things that don't matter, the little things. Don't make them bigger than they are, and definitely stay true to yourself. Don't worry about what people think is a big one.
And when you smoke herb, you will get that answer.
Exactly.
true. It's
exactly.
true. It's true.
Yeah, I guess I would have told my 21-year-old self to smoke.
Yeah.
I didn't really start having a meaningful relationship with cannabis until I moved to LA. I moved to a legal state when I was 29 and got a medical rec in my early 30s, and then started to really understand what it was. I realized I didn't have any sense of what it really was until that time. But yeah, I guess I would have told myself to move to California sooner to get that medical marijuana rec to help me chill out and find myself.
And you know what else? I just actually started learning about herb. I mean, growing up, I just used to smell the herb and smoke the herb. I had no idea of names. Gee, this, that. I didn't care. I didn't know anything about that. All I wanted was a good draw herb. So now, now with all the information that we have, it's just nicer to know that, you're more educated about what you're consuming,
Well, this is wonderful. Any other questions? Oh, Miss Heidi Hanford.
I had a conversation with someone about this yesterday, and I think for the professional leagues, the NFL has a CBA coming up, and the truth is the owners are going to use it for leverage, And I talked to D. Smith, and the head of the Players Association, and he says his target is to make it a health and wellness issue, to not make it a recreational issue. So we'll see how that goes, but. I think in 10 years we're going to be laughing at even these conversations we're having right now. I think things are changing, and they're not going to go backwards. I mean, old people are dying, and things are going to change. And my big question is, are we going to be ready for the change? And more specifically, what I'm doing is I think as an influencer. I think that's what they call me, is really my life story. It speaks for itself. And I think, had, like everyone predicted, I went off the deep end when I left the NFL, it would have looked bad for cannabis. But the fact that I got my shit together and I'm doing amazing things with my life is a testament.
And I'm just sitting and watching, because we've been in it a long, long time. And I love that Bernie Sanders, I'm not into politics, but as you know, it's going to be the number one topic. Like that, I think that's what's going to tilt this thing. He's like, we're legalizing it, recreation all throughout every state. So I think that's where we're going, I believe. And that becomes like cigarette. Like you just go there and buy a pack of herb, like you do with cigarettes.
It's changing.
What's crazy is we were in Vancouver a couple months ago, and it just was cool that you could just at the airport, just go outside the airport and smoke a joint. Like,
wow, really? That's great.
Yeah, it's changing. It's like Ricky said. I don't even think it's going to be 10 years from now with how fast it's going, because you see it. It's just like when Ricky and I met, and my mother was, people were kind of like, wait, so you guys. Use cannabis. This was when I was still going into the office every day too, law firm. And they're like, so you use cannabis every day? And I was like, Yeah. And they're like, and you're, you know, and they kind of like, and your life hasn't just like spiraled downward, you know? And I was like, no, it's better. It's better now. Right? And those people that were asking me that a few years ago now use it every day. So it's changing really fast. It's just we're impatient, but in the span of, you know, human generational, this is happening really fast, especially with technology and everything else we have now. I think after 2020, it's going to be a lot more smoother. Like this is kind of the last bit of the cobbled together thing. I mean, it's just too much pressure at this point. Right. Yeah.
There is a lot of political pressure, and we are definitely on the heels of legalization. And we want to deschedule, not reschedule cannabis. We know it's safer than alcohol. We need to make sure that we do not let them completely ruin the industry by rescheduling it and handing it over to pharmaceutical companies, because it is an herb and it really should be accessible. People should be able to grow their own, and they should be able to consume in a safe place if they're 21 years or older without having any problems.
Okay, I have a question for Chloe and then a comment for the panel. So, Chloe, back in 2010, Castleman's. Do you ever think we'd be here today this fast?
Well, it didn't feel that fast to me, I can tell you that. It felt like it kind of crawled along, but I did, you know. And in 2010, I was putting the first university through the Department of Higher Education, and everyone would tell me I'd work till 2 in the morning. I would get up sometimes at 4 a.m., almost every day at 4 a.m., not when I'd work till 2 a.m. But it was just late nights, early mornings, and it was so hard. I worked so hard, and I wrote the first curriculum, almost the entire thing myself. And it would just change. I mean, every regulatory session would get more intense. Another state would come on, and I 100% knew that that ball was going to start rolling. And I mean, if I could tell you in my mind where I see us going now, it's coming faster than we think, but I don't think that this happened that fast. I think it was just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of dedication, and a lot of work. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I really think that the fastest growth has happened in the past 5 years. It was really slow at first in the beginning. I mean, we were pushing a 100-ton boulder uphill. I remember that vividly in Colorado.
I remember you showing up at the university, and you were doing all of the stuff you were doing for patients in like 2009.
Yeah.
And
it never ends. So that's my comment that I'd like to make to the board and basically everybody in here. It is so hard, and you're dealing with people who are very, very ill. Now, thank you to everybody up there for standing as strong as you do. And thank you to our celebrities for empowering people. You don't know how important that is to empower others. And to everybody who is empowered by them, never shut up. Every conversation can be turned to cannabis. You come talk to me, I can turn any conversation to cannabis.
Yeah, I don't have that problem. Everyone that comes talks to me, I usually want to talk about
Right.
cannabis.
When they walk away from you, they don't have that same celebrity, so they need to know that you can. Learn, educate. It's not just health and wellness. They're making cars, they're building houses. It's everywhere. Legos is going to start making Legos out of hemp. So learn as much as you can. Set up your Google alerts. Read about it every day. And never shut up, please. That's what I have to say. And please, just follow that. Never shut up.
thank you, Heidi. You know, that's so important. You know, I think what it comes down to is really changing the things that you can no longer accept. And I think a lot of us in this country and all around the world, just a lot of places are just fed up with the things that we can't accept. You know, we're legalizing all kinds of stuff. I mean, you can be who you want to be in this world. If you want to be gay, you want to get married, like, you should have the right. And so it's a beautiful thing to see how we're growing into our consciousness and elevating to higher levels.
It already has. It already has. Yeah. I mean, we actually were reached out to privately by Google, because they're starting to get into Google ads of CBD companies. And they privately reach out to brands that they want to start in the pilot programs, right? So Charlotte's Web obviously is one, and Real Wellness is one, right? If they're going to get into it, what do they want to allow going out there first, right? So Google reached out, and we were like, oh, that's so amazing, that's happening, right? And then payment processors, right? Like we got reached out to privately by Square, same thing. Payment processors are getting into it. Which brands do they want to first, who are the people they feel are on the up and up that we start these relationships with? And they contacted us, said, do you want to be part of our pilot program for CBD companies, getting into that market? And we were like, sure. And then we're like, also, we're already using you. And they're like, oh, right? So it was like one of those moments, but it's happening. It's happening very quickly, is what I'm saying. I think now it has been a struggle for so many years, but now there's so much press about the opioid epidemic, and it's prime now, right? That's why stuff's happening so fast. But yeah, the ads that's happening as we speak. Yeah.
Wow, it's so great to know you guys. I'm going to have to send a picture of our panel to the merchant card services because I didn't have the same kind of luck. And I'm banned from ever advertising on Facebook for life. And all I was doing was advertising cannabis classes to keep people compliant that were in the business. And so I think it was because I was just in so long ago and one of the first ones, and it just, a lot of the pioneers took the biggest beating in the business. I've lost my bank accounts and merchant card services so many times, I can't even tell you. And I think that's what I'm looking for the most, is being able to just be a normal person, not being in the closet or put in this category like you're a bad person and you don't have the same rights as other business owners because you're in cannabis.
Yeah, we were kicked out of 2 big banks. That took up a lot of my time, just trying to get bank account and then one getting dropped and another. Ricky and I were kicked out of our own banks that we've been private. I was a private banking client of Citibank. He was a private client of Wells Fargo. And not only did they bump us, but they kicked us out and his 16-year-old son's account.
Wow.
So it isn't all smooth sailing. I mean, it's been tremendous. We've landed on credit unions and other banks where we're they're totally welcoming, so that's happening too. The banking industry is we've actually landed on a legitimate bank, but that was a huge inefficiency that we have to face that other brands and other companies don't. And that's to the point, is people think it's all the green rush and all of that, but there's a lot of hurdles even to this day that people are still facing. And I hope with the Facebook thing, that even though you're forever banned now, similarly to how we have people incarcerated for ridiculous possession, that as those people get pulled out and we work on doing that same thing with that any of those restrictions that you have now that we don't, or people coming in after you, that gets rectified as well.
Yes, I hope so.
Start a campaign, Free Greenleaf.
Yes, we're going to have to protest. One thing that I'm doing with Cloverleaf University, and I want to throw it out there, is we have started expungement clinics. So we're going to go from state to state. All the money we raise, it's $75 to $100 or $150, depending on the state, per expungement. And we're going to take every dollar and start expunging records. And I mean, I get hundreds of letters probably a month from people in jail who, if I could go to your school, I could really make something out of my life. So I think the most important thing that we should take from today is no matter what, we are not leaving our prisoners of war behind. We are taking them with us. And I would love anybody's support that I can have with that.
Hi.
Can I get on that expungement list? Yeah.
I want to thank you. Is this working? You are all pioneers and very inspirational. Thank you. I expressed my man love for the football players already outside. One of the things that hasn't been touched upon. First, I have a success story. Also, my 19-year-old daughter has autism, and we use a volcano together, and she has really come a long way. And there's a lot of positive things. I also have a 15-year-old son. He was just expelled for having a vape pen at school. So the reason I'm telling that part of the story is there is the business is moving fast. My technology company trying to be a part of it, moving fast as well. But there's also the case that could be made for pioneers like you, who are visionaries, who are 2 steps ahead, to see a business that self-regulates, that might be worried about tomorrow's abusers, can also be beneficial to the community. Because with all this good comes the inevitable bad also. And it's a concern to me. I've been using marijuana since I was 15 years old. But, it's a concern that I think the industry has to face. What are your thoughts on lending your lending your vision not just to creating products that help people, but creating a message that everything has its place and it's not just for being high all the time?
What's wrong with being high all the time? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. That's one of the things that I'm glad you made that point is, in the green rush, it is, we do, I think, overstate the positives and probably don't talk about the negatives so much. And I think part of that is a balance thing, because if you look at all the research done before the 2000s, all of it was done to prove that cannabis was bad. And so I understand the balancing out, but I think the solution is what we're doing now, is having real, honest, open conversations about it. And I have a 16-year-old got kicked out of private school for something similar. Yeah. I mean, he's fine, but I think it's just having serious, honest conversations, and also I think what Chloe mentioned earlier is we need to find out more information. There needs to be more research, because even that gut, and I'm not saying whether it's true or not, I'm just pointing out that gut reflex that, especially when we say, I started when I was 13, but we have this gut reflex that it's bad for kids, And so I think we just need to do more research and be open and be honest about it. And I think the truth is, my experience, some teenagers can handle it, some teenagers can't. And it's the same for adults. Some adults can and some adults can't. And I just think the conversations and the research will help us get to the bottom of this.
And one thing for sure, you're not going to stop a kid from doing anything. Especially, I try, I burn. His mother doesn't burn, my son, but she complains, oh, he's burning because of you. I said, what do you want me to do? I didn't give him a spliff. His friends, So I try to tell him, I said, listen, if you're going to smoke herb, smoke with me. So I can curve him, but I can't stop him, because it's no different than the kids smoking cigarettes outside or doing it under, children, they're going to do what they want to do, just like we did. And you can punish them all you want, but it ain't going to stop none. You know what I mean? It's just that's just, I don't know. There's nothing I can tell them, nothing. You can tell her, hey, don't see that girl. I don't like your girlfriend. You know what? You see her after school, you never know. Same thing. It's just what they want to do, they're going to do it. And all I can tell her, I say, listen, man, if you're going to smoke herb, get it from me. At least, I can make sure that what he's smoking is good herb. I don't know. Yeah, but it's the same thing with beer and liquor. It's same. They put it on NFL. Beer is like the same thing. You just have to say you can't. You have to just put on the label, 21 or 18 and older. You know what I mean? You just, that's what all you can do is share that information.
Well, if I could say something about that too, because it's true to do it with family. And if you have the last name Marley, or if you're a child of Ricky Williams, like there's going to be that desire to be identified with it, right? And so, what we've experienced with his children, and what I love when Ricky talks to his kids, is he takes it a step further, where he said anything that's done consciously. There's no good or bad. It's just is it done consciously or not, right? So it's not the thing itself that is the bad thing we need to keep the kids away from. I actually like talking to kids about it, because they're into plant medicine. They're not into alcohol. They're not into the things that my generation and older, that's fading out, and this is coming in. And why they're into plant medicine is because it allows you to connect to yourself. So I hear Ricky say to his teenagers, okay, if you're going to do that and you're going to go to the altered state, you're going to go to the higher plane. And we're also looking to destigmatize the word high. Ricky explained to me it was a good thing when that word came into our lexicon however many decades ago. It was used for people to explain the elevated place. And then through what happened in the 70s and 80s and Nixon and Reagan, it became twisted into something bad. It's not a bad thing to be elevated and to be above yourself, as Rohan was describing, come out and be above yourself. So when we talk to kids, it's like, okay, Ricky will say to his son, well, if you're going to go to that altered state, what are you going to get from it to bring back, to put into the world? That's the key. You ask them that. What are you doing once you're there? What are you trying to get to bring back and to help the world? And when I heard him say that, I was like, oh, yeah, that's really the framework in my mind. That's the spiritual part of this.
I'm going to add to that because we know we're running out of time. But I remember just after football, I didn't know what I was going to do. I went on tour with my brothers. And before they go on stage, they burn a spliff. And I'm always asking, let me have a draw. So my brother Ziggy said to me, what are you smoking for? I smoke because I play music. And I was like, I couldn't answer him at the point. You know what I mean? Because herb is a medicine. It's to like you hear. It's to elevate you. So he's like, brethren, herb is not just something. It's a sacrament to us. You can't just smoke to smoke. You have to have a reason for smoking. So that's what we're talking about.
And not only that, we have a responsibility, if you are going to be in this industry, to destigmatize cannabis. You have a responsibility to show that we are a responsible industry, not, self-rule, run rampant. It's not one big party where everybody's smoking. And this is one of the reasons that I have a university, because we are going to educate the masses, and we are going to show people the beauty of the cannabis plant and what it really is, which it's people like Michael Phelps are smoking cannabis. So, I think we're going to realize that this plant creates a lot of winners. And though it's not for everybody, and some children should not be smoking, it could take things out, we have to just be responsible, and we have to educate the masses on the plant. And I think that's all we have.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Spurred a good conversation.
Yes. I think that's all we have time for. So thank you so much for having us.